I would like to talk about mixing theory, the theory of mixing, and where I come from when it comes to mixing, the challenges that I dealt with starting off my career, or obviously started as a hobby as a DJ, and then eventually made its way to becoming a professional DJ. So, mixing theory, right? What you need to understand first about myself is that I am a musician first. So I started off as a musician. This was back in elementary school. I think everyone played the recorder, right? And then I was inspired by my older brother when he made it into middle school, also known, or formerly known, FKA, formerly known as junior high. So he went on to play the saxophone. I was inspired by my brother, my older brother. Shout out to my older brother, Frank, and his band. I'll eventually give a plug for his band. They are staying busy. They are staying active. And it's fun. They are kind of like a punk band, punk rock. And they're fun. They are great musicians, fun music. Shout out to my brother, Frank, and his band. But I started off as a musician, inspired by him playing the tenor saxophone. That's what he did, so that's what I did. And then from playing the tenor saxophone, I had elevated. I was appointed to be the leader of the sax group. And so I went on, transitioned from the tenor saxophone to the alto saxophone, and I was the group leader as the alto saxophone for the jazz band. And I was, inspired by the number one jazz musician that I was inspired by was John Coltrane. He was introduced to me by our teacher, Kelly Jenkins. Shout out, Kelly Jenkins. Thank you so much for being who you were for all of us students that were under your teachings. It was a blessing. It was amazing. And one of the things that I really appreciated was that she used to take us to Hamilton High School to go take a look. We used to caravan. We went out to Hamilton High School to go take a look at their concerts that they would put on. And that really inspired me to want to pursue music on another level. But John Coltrane was my inspiration. I was introduced to John Coltrane by our teacher, Miss Jenkins. And the first jazz album that I owned was John Coltrane playing the blues, right? So there's an album about that is dedicated to the blues, and I was inspired by the blues to learn blues scales, and that's what I was doing. I was a saxophone player, the lead alto saxophone player for the local junior high jazz band. That was my heart and my passion. I auditioned for Hamilton High School there in Southern California, and I got accepted. One of my weak points, believe it or not, was my scales. So I was strong on the blues scales, but I was weak on other scales. So I had to work on that. Nonetheless, I still got accepted into this school. My friends had convinced me to stay at Banning High School to play football with them. Shout out Mr. Woodson. Mr. Woodson is a legend in the South Bay, is a legend in the state of California for his tremendous contributions to the Mighty Marching Pilots band. And he's a legend, man, I'm telling you. Shout out Mr. Woodson. But he put on a jazz band class. And so it was a win-win for me going back to Banning, deciding to go to Banning High School to play football with the homies, play football with the brothers, and do the jazz band thing. Well, I got too busy with football and with school. I wasn't able to dedicate any time to playing in the jazz band. Nonetheless, always been a musician. From there, I started to play drums at the church that my family had attended, played the drums, evolved into playing the keyboards. And I kind of, that was like a steady thing for quite some time. Throughout my teens, my early 20s, I was a musician, and I played the drums, I played the keys. Of course, if you play the keys, you're going to learn. It's almost the same thing as playing the organ. Same system there, just techniques and whatnot are a little bit different. But from that, I started to produce music. And the type of music that I produced was R&B and hip-hop. But around that time, the drum kits, the sound was becoming very trappy, and so I was influenced by that. So the types of beats that I made was more on the trap side, right? It was more on the Dirty South sound. That's what I liked. I was inspired by that, and that's what I did. And so I was a musician first, then I became a producer, and then from that I had an attempt to being a rapper. Now it's kind of embarrassing now when I think about it, when I look back, and I really wasn't a rapper. Bro, I'm telling you, I wasn't a rapper. I was more like an ad-libber. My skill was not there. And one of the biggest problems that I ran into was that the lyrics that I did write and record, I couldn't remember them. It was hard for me to recite them on site during a performance. I found that I had it was too difficult for me to remember the stuff that I wrote out and recorded. And I would practice and practice and practice, but I realized, you know what, man, this isn't for me. I'm going to have to move on. So I was an artist, but I was an ad-lib artist. I wouldn't say a rap artist. I wasn't very good at that. But I had these three things in front, right? Always the musician, which obviously translated into producing beats. I was really influenced by trap soul, man. The Young Tiller, the 2014, 2015, 2016 Bryson Tiller. Let me tell you something. He was him. Young Tiller, Ken Griffey. I'm telling you, I was so inspired by the trap soul. And the funny thing is that when you go back and you listen to the trap soul album, the 808s are dirty. It's the sound quality is not there. It's kind of subpar, but the level of production, the quality was an A1, but the creativity, I would have to say, was definitely off the charts. It had so much influence. His sound, what he did, how he did his flow, how he did his thing was just absolutely amazing. I was so inspired during that time. But during that time, I was already kind of getting into DJing. So from there, being involved in organizations that I was in at the time, whenever there would be events that we would be giving back to the community, just so happened we'd get speakers out there and I would DJ, right? And it would be from the laptop. That's kind of where that came from. I had family and friends that whenever they would celebrate, key birthdays, milestone birthdays, whenever they would have some things, they would ask me if I would be willing to DJ. And of course I was like, yeah, sure. No problem. I got it. At the time I was using the Algorithm program, which is also known now as DJ Pro, and whatever system they had back then, that's what I had downloaded. And I initially started just off of iTunes, just being a music selector. I'm not a DJ, man, right? Anybody could just select music and play it, and that's where I started. Then from there I invested in Algorithm's program, and because coming from a musician and coming from producing, I use Logic. I have always used Logic. That was with the MacBook Pro, so I just used Logic. I loved it. So I understood what BPMs were. I understood what measures were. I understand measures and bars, all that stuff. So I downloaded the software, understanding that, okay, I don't just want to be a music selector, right? I don't just want to press play and then press play for the next song, and then when that one ends, press play for the next. I wanted to beat blend. I wanted to beat match. I wanted to blend music. So I started off of the laptop. I had a small little mini Akai. I forget exactly the name of it, but it had this one didn't even have too many pads on it. It was really small. And I had MIDI mapped the Akai, a MIDI controller, which was used for keyboards and making beats for drum kits. I MIDI mapped that to control the Algorithm DJ program. So that was my first controller. That was my first way to blend music. That was my first way to add effects through the DJ software. So that's where I started. And then I started to grow, started to evolve, and I invested in an actual DJ controller. And from the DJ controller, I got into control vinyl, Serato. I started to transform it. There's a whole story there, right? But here's my thing, right? Bringing it back to what we're talking about, and that is mixing theory, right? So mixing theory. So I had problems, man. I had some serious problems. And the reason why I had problems as a beginner DJ is because I came from being a musician and producer first. So how does that translate? This is how it translates. As a producer, right, you're making music, you create beats. And what happens is that there are key things during your production that you know of and are highlighted in your mind. You have the beginning chorus, or the hook, whatever you want to call it. You have the beginning, that, and then you go into the verse, or the verse might go first, and then you go into the chorus, and then you go into another verse, and then you go into another chorus, or you start with the chorus, verse, and then you end with the ending chorus. But here's the thing, as being a producer and musician, is that there's there's little tweaks that you put into your music. So the first verse is not going to sound like the second verse musically, right? I'm not talking about lyrics. I'm not talking about melodies. I'm talking about music. So musically, it's going to be different. And then from the first verse, you're going to add a little piano lick, right? That's going in the second verse. And then you're going to do something a little extra special for the third verse. You're going to add a synth on top of whatever you're doing. So what happens is that coming from being a musician and producer, I wanted to hear that third verse. Why did I want to hear that third verse? Because I appreciated the production value, and I appreciated the musician behind the beat that put that extra little flicker to it, that put that extra little riff on the guitar, on the piano, put that little extra lick. And I wanted the song to play from beginning to, not all the way to the end, but at least close to the end, to capture the build within that song. And I appreciated it. And I had a problem with other DJs that would cut music short. Like, bro, I wanted to hear that last chorus. I wanted to hear the last hook. Why? Because I wanted to hear that extra synth on top of the vocals and everything that just made it pop, in my opinion. So I would, coming from being a producer and a musician, would get mad at the DJs that were cutting the song early. And I had realized that people would get bored when I was playing the songs all the way close to the end, right when it was about to end, then I would echo out with the correct BPM and blend in the next song and go from there. But what I had realized is that the people that I was DJing for did not appreciate the music, or they weren't entertained by the music as much as I was, because they got bored with it. And after a minute and a half, it's like they're looking at me like, the next song, please. And I'm there, like, I'm vibing out. I'm like, dude, you got to hear what's going to happen on the third verse. This little piano riff is amazing, bro, and you got to hear it. You need to hear it. And so I realized they did not need to hear it. I slowly realized that I was in the wrong, that I needed to change the way that I mixed. It needed to be a little bit faster. I needed to highlight the areas or the portions of the songs that people recognize, and the portions of the songs that people like. My daughter's singing in the background. Babe, I'm recording. Babe, I'm recording. So, it was a unique time for me to learn that, right? It was a unique experience to learn that. And here's the reason, is because I didn't have any mentors. I really didn't click with anybody. I was embarrassed. That's why I didn't want to click with DJs and them look at me like, bro, you ain't no DJ, man. Get out of here, bro. You know what I mean? Like, stick to the saxophone, bro. Stick to, producing R&Bs, stick to making music, producing beats and selling them. Cause that's what I was doing for a minute. So it was a time in my life to where I was embarrassed to be around real DJs, man. Embarrassed to be around real DJs, because I didn't want to really expose myself to that and get criticized, get shot down, get shut down, get talked about. Like, you need to stay away from that guy, DJ Rubin. He doesn't know what the heck he's doing. He's not a real DJ. He's fake. So I really dealt with that psyche. That's why I did not connect with other DJs. So from there, the first time that I even played on vinyl, right, the turntables that I was exposed to in my youth were my father's, were my dad's, and I never touched them. I didn't mess with turntables. It wasn't my thing. My thing was saxophone, keyboards, drums, drumsticks, right? That was my thing. Cymbals. Those were the things I touched. Those were the things that I played with. I didn't mess with turntables, so I didn't know, right? So 1 week before I landed this gig, man, and it was 1 week before the gig, I landed it, and I had to use the equipment there, and it was turntables, right? They had turntables there, and I had to use the turntables, but I've never touched a turntable before in my life. 1 week before, right? So I had to dive into YouTube. I had to dive into videos. I had to dive to find out, okay, what is all this stuff about the turntable, right? What is all this stuff about that? So I had to dive into it. I had to learn about what a needle is, what a cartridge is, what all the, what the toner is, what, the weight in the back. I had to learn all these things, right, within 1 week. So I had a friend of mine, a barber friend of mine that was a DJ. Back in the day, he wasn't that active anymore, but he had a little setup in his garage, and we did have a little beefing back when we were working at a barbershop together. So I was a little apprehensive, but I was like, I can't be shy. I need to reach out. He's the only person I trust. He's the only person that I could connect with, because any other DJ out there is going to just kick me out of the room and say, dude, get the heck out of here. And you shouldn't even be having that gig next week, bro. Just call them and cancel, right? So I didn't want that rejection. So I ended up reaching out to him. We ended up, mending some of our beefs, and he was so kind enough to allow me into his garage so I could practice. So I only had like not even an hour practicing on control vinyl, and I was like, all right, here we go. Whatever I felt, whatever I touched, whatever I experienced in his garage, I was like, okay, let's go ahead and take it over to the event next week. And I did. And I managed to make it happen. I didn't blend as good, right? Because working with turntables for the first time and trying to blend after using controllers is a totally different thing if you've never touched vinyl before. So, of course, it was sloppy. So, of course, it was embarrassing. But I got through it. Made it happen. And from there, I decided to go ahead and invest in some turntables, invest in some things that would help me, along the way, because I respected, I love the art so much that I wanted to learn how to work turntables, how to use vinyl. I even went out to go buy vinyl to mix on real vinyl, and then I went to control vinyl. And then for the longest time, for all of my gigs, I would take my turntables and I would use control vinyl, and then I started to compromise, and now I do use controllers. I do want to get a Rev 7. I don't have a Rev 7. I have the 1000 SRT. That bad boy is really good. I love it. I enjoy it. But that was my journey. So, coming from a musician, coming from a producer, I would definitely long mix because I enjoyed it, realizing that other people did not enjoy it, and I had to learn how to quick mix. And so that's my journey. So even now, though, I could tell you this: I'm not a big fan of super quick mixing. I'm absolutely not a fan of super quick. That's like, 30 seconds, like a small little phrase of the intro of the song, and then going on to another phrase, like not even allowing the whole hook to end, right? You're just doing the phrase and then going to the next one, doing the phrase and then doing the next one. I am not a fan of that, bro. I know, there's people that are very successful at doing that, but I know that when I'm in a club, when I'm at an event, when I'm at a venue, when I'm somewhere, and then I hear that type of quick mixing, I'm not a big fan of it, man. Like, I at least want to, let me at least enjoy the hook, right? Let me at least enjoy the rest of this verse. Like, I enjoy the music. I'm okay with it not going all the way to the third, right? But let's work things out to make it, at least let us enjoy a good portion of it. So for me, my theory, my mixing theory is that I at least like to go, if it's going to start with the hook, let's do the hook, and then let's go into the verse, and then out of the second hook. That's where I like to mix out of the second hook, so you get a good portion of the song. Sometimes if the song is not working, if it's not hitting on the dance floor, if people are openly expressing that they don't like it, you know how that is. They'll turn around and look like, what are you doing? So then from there, I'll get out of the song as soon as possible, and even if it's right in the middle of the verse, I don't care. If I have something ready on deck, I'll go ahead and blend it out. Let's go. Let's get it out. Even if it's right in the middle of the opening hook, if the people are looking at me with disgust, okay, I already know, let's go ahead and get it out. But besides that, I usually like to let, at least if it starts with the verse, let's do the verse, let's do the hook, the verse, and then on the second hook is, for me, is my sweet spot. My girls are making so much noise in the background. It's a little bit distractive, but that's all good, man. I'm right here where I'm located. It's kind of in the family space, so I'm gonna have to deal with the background regardless. But mixing theory, I'm not a big fan. If you want to ask me about quick mixing, I'm not a big fan of the phrase of a hook and then out. I'm not a big fan of that. At least give me the whole hook, man. If you want quick mixing, I'll give you the whole hook and then we'll go ahead and blend it out. But my recommendation is at least to do a hook, a verse, and then a second hook. Let's go ahead and get out of the song and go to the next one. Now, there are exceptions if it's something that I put on and it's fire and everyone's doing the sing along and you already know that they're going to sing all the way to the third verse. Right? If they're going hard on Justin Bieber's Baby and they want to sing Ludacris, so I'm going to give them all the way to Ludacris, bro. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them Ludacris. I'm going to go over there. Now, maybe we could skip, right? Maybe we could do certain things. Mo Bamba, I do skip and go all the way to the most popular song, which, by the way, it still works. It still hits. Mo Bamba still works. I recently did a Sweet 16. I recently did a prom, and Mo Bamba still goes Mo Bamba, man. It still works. So, but, I do skip. I do skip to get to a certain point using cue points. And I know that's the type of mixing that Nick Spinelli does a lot. Shout out Nick Spinelli. He doesn't do the edits. He does his cue points. I know eventually he's going to get into doing his own editing. I do my own editing. I use Logic. So if I could just drag it, drop it into Logic, cut it up, paste it together, and then bounce it out, label it, and then drop it back into one of my crates on Serato, it's Gucci, man. It's the business right there to do it like that. But anyways, I just wanted to share a little bit of my history and a little bit of my mindset on mixing theories, right? On mixing theory and the struggle that I went through as being a musician. I really wanted to hear the extra chord progression towards the end, and I would play the whole song towards the end, but bro, that doesn't work, right? If you like something that's at the end, it's best just to drop it into Logic, chop it up, paste it up, and then use that. Or you could just use your cue points to skip a large portion of the song to get to that nice riff that you think will pop on the dance floor. Or maybe if it just doesn't matter on the dance floor, maybe it just gives you as a DJ an extra flair to your sound. It gives you an extra, dude, like I forgot that song had that part in it. That was pretty dope to have that factor in your song. Nonetheless, it's time for me to go. I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to the chat all the way to this point, the podcast all the way to this point. Once again, go ahead and share it. Let people know about this. I will definitely be hopping on and dropping a lot more. Eventually, we will have some guests and we'll have some conversations that will last quite some time with interest and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in to Drop the Q with Big Roo. And God bless you guys. And we'll catch you next time, man. We'll see you.